Pizza Boxer and the guy next door. I met Maxwell Hayes for the first time while wearing Pizza Boxer shorts. It was a sweltering September night in Chicago. I had just moved into the student apartment complex near Belridge University exactly 2 hours ago when the power went out across the entire building. Sweat running down my spine. I tore through my suitcase looking for pants but found nothing. So I threw on those ridiculous boxers and shuffled out into the hallway to see what was going on. The biggest mistake of my life. The apartment door across from mine swung open at that exact moment. A guy who was nearly tall enough to graze the door frame stepped out, flashlight from his phone cutting through the dark. I froze. He froze. The phone light shone directly on me, and illuminated with devastating clarity the pepperoni slices on my boxer shorts. Then the handsome guy burst out laughing. Not polite laughter. The kind where you double over because you absolutely cannot stop. Seriously? He asked between laughs. I wanted to disappear from the face of the earth. Don't say anything. You're wearing pizza pants. I know. Do these come in a kid's combo deal? I hate you. He laughed again, then extended his hand. Maxwell. I stared at that hand for a few seconds. Even his hands were annoyingly perfect. Vincent. New Belridge student? Transfer. Junior year. Oh. Maxwell leaned against his door. So you're the one who just moved into the unit at the end of the hall? Yeah. Poor guy. Why? He quirked his lips. Because you just moved into the most chaotic apartment complex near campus. As if to illustrate the point, someone on the floor below screamed, "Bro, don't set that on fire." Then the fire alarm went off. I stood there for a few seconds, then exhaled slowly. Maybe I should go back to the dorms. Maxwell looked me up and down, the corner of his mouth still curling. No, he said. This place is way more fun. I didn't know Maxwell was famous until the next morning. I was wrestling with the coffee machine in the lobby when two girls walked past. Holy shit. One of them whispered, "That's Maxwell Hayes." I thought he moved out of here. I looked up. Maxwell had just come down the stairs. Hair still slightly damp. Gray hoodie. Headphones hanging around his neck. And God help me, he looked like he'd stepped straight off a teen movie poster. But what shocked me more was everyone's reaction. The two girls flushed immediately. A group of students near the glass doors turned to look at him. Even the security guard raised his hand in greeting. "Morning, superstar." Maxwell answered with a lazy smile and walked straight toward me. "Coffee machine broken?" "What? I've been standing here for 3 minutes," he said. "You're looking at that machine like you want to punch it. I've never used this kind before." Maxwell gave a quiet laugh, then stepped up close behind me. Too close. I immediately caught a faint scent of mint shampoo. "Press this button." He reached past my shoulder. "Then wait." I tried to focus on the coffee machine rather than the toned forearm directly in front of my face. Incredibly difficult. "Thanks." I stepped back. "No problem, pizza boy. I will kill you." Maxwell laughed. The two girls behind us practically short-circuited at the sight. One of them had her mouth hanging open. Did Maxwell just flirt with someone? I've never seen him talk to anyone that long. I heard every word. Maxwell probably did too. But he just picked up his coffee cup and looked at me. "Heading to class?" "Yeah." "Walk together." I blinked. "With me?" "No." Maxwell pushed the door open. "With the security guard." I'm starting to understand why everyone wants to punch you. But nobody's managed it yet. I hated how attractive that sounded. Belridge University was exactly the kind of college you see in American movies. Red brick buildings draped in ivy. Wide grassy lawns. Students lying in the sun reading. Cheerleaders practicing near the stadium. And at the center of all that chaos was Maxwell Hayes. I realized that the moment I stepped onto campus with him. Max. Hayes. Bro. Don't forget the party tonight. Everyone knew him. And Maxwell carried that like he'd long since made peace with it. "I feel like I'm walking next to a celebrity," I muttered. Maxwell raised an eyebrow. "Jealous?" "Just surprised." "Don't worry. He tucked his hands into his hoodie pocket. You'll be famous soon enough. Why? Maxwell looked at me for a moment. His gaze made my heart skip a beat for no good reason. You're the kind of person people remember. I immediately turned away. This wasn't good. Not good at all. That evening, I found out Maxwell was in the same communications department as me. And even worse, he sat directly behind me in media production. Are you following me? I asked as Maxwell dragged his chair out and sat down. Possibly. I'm calling the police. You wore pizza boxers. Maxwell propped his chin in his hand and looked at me. The police will side with me. I laughed despite myself. The professor began assigning midterm project groups. I hadn't even had time to pray before I heard Vincent Carter and Maxwell Hayes. The entire class turned to look at us simultaneously. A girl near the front even said, "Oh my God. That's unfair. Two good-looking guys in the same group." I nearly choked. Maxwell was infuriatingly calm. "Looks like we're partners," he said. "I think the professor hates me." I'd say it's the opposite. I didn't understand that until after class. Because the moment I stepped out of the lecture hall, a girl stopped me. "Sorry." She was blushing. "Does Maxwell really live in the same building as you?" "Yeah." "Is he single?" I paused for a beat. A strange feeling crept into my chest. Uncomfortable, irrational, and absolutely not appropriate. "I don't know," I answered flatly. But at that exact moment, Maxwell appeared behind me. "Ido." The girl spun around. Maxwell slung his arm over my shoulder with complete ease. "And I'm currently unavailable." My entire body went rigid. The girl looked so stunned she could only nod and walk away. I stood frozen for a few seconds after she left. "What the hell did you just do?" Maxwell still hadn't removed his arm from my shoulder. "Saved you from an awkward conversation. By pretending we're dating?" Maxwell looked at me. Then he smiled very slowly. "Pretending?" My heart stopped. Literally. I stared at Maxwell for a full 5 seconds. 5 very long seconds. Long enough to notice his hand was still resting on my shoulder. Long enough to notice my heart was pounding at a stupidly fast rate. Long enough to wonder whether Maxwell Hayes had just flirted with me in the middle of campus. Then he dropped his arm like nothing had happened. "You planning to stand here and fossilize?" Maxwell asked. I blinked rapidly. "What did you just say?" "I asked if you were planning to." "No." The thing before that. Maxwell shoved both hands in his pants pockets and started down the steps. "I don't remember." "You asshole." He laughed. I hated that I liked that laugh. 3 days later, the entire Belridge campus started rumoring that Maxwell and I were dating. I wish I were joking. It all started with a photo. Someone had captured the moment Maxwell put his arm around my shoulder outside the lecture hall. And of course, every university has that one insufferable gossip account on Instagram. At Belridge.Inside posted the photo at midnight with the caption, "Maxwell Hayes finally off the market?" I woke up the next morning to 37 messages. Old friends. New ones. People I didn't even remember the names of. All asking the same thing. "Are you and Maxwell for real?" I buried my face in my hands, groaning, then shuffled out to the kitchen. Maxwell was standing there making pancakes, in gray sweatpants, and no shirt. I immediately turned and retreated to my room. "Whoa!" Maxwell laughed behind me. "Why are you running?" "I need God. I don't think Belridge has a church. I'll build one myself." He laughed harder. Damn it. Why was even his laugh attractive? "Come eat," Maxwell said. "I made too much. I think you did it on purpose." "Maybe." I returned to the kitchen with maximum wariness. Maxwell set a plate of pancakes in front of me and sat down across the table. "You see the post?" "Wish I hadn't. I think it's pretty funny." "Funny for you." Pointed at my phone. "People have been asking me since forever." Maxwell sipped his coffee. "What did you tell them?" "That we're not dating." "Oh." Somehow, I felt a slight pang at that reaction. I stabbed my fork into a pancake. "Obviously we're not dating." Maxwell propped his chin in his hand and looked at me. Right? But the way his eyes looked made the word right sound anything but certain. That afternoon, Maxwell and I had to go to the department's film studio to work on our project. The problem was, we were completely incompatible as collaborators. I'm saying this camera angle looks better. I'm saying it'll make the audience dizzy. You have no vision. You have no brain. Maxwell's mouth fell open like he'd been personally insulted. I was the top student in this class last year. I feel sorry for the American education system. Vincent. Maxwell. We glared at each other across the laptop screen for nearly a minute. Then the professor walked by. Ah, he smiled. You two argue like newlyweds. I slammed my face onto the desk. Maxwell laughed like a maniac. By evening, the project still wasn't done. The studio was just the two of us. Outside, it had started to rain. Raindrops drummed against the glass in time with the quiet lo-fi music playing from Maxwell's Bluetooth speaker.
I'm hungry, he complained.
You're always hungry. I'm a grown man. You ate gummy bears for dinner last night. I'm on a budget. Maxwell shook his head and stood up. I'll go get food. Now? There's a burger place open 24/7. I'm coming.
No.
He grabbed his jacket. You stay here and fix the intro. I hate you. But you still want a burger. True. Maxwell smiled and walked out. I watched the studio door close behind him. And for the first time in days, the silence felt strange. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled slowly. What was I doing? Maxwell was obviously just the type who liked teasing people. Handsome, popular, easygoing. The kind of person who flirts with everyone without thinking much of it. And me? I was foolish enough to have started hoping. That was dangerous. Very dangerous. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Be careful with Maxwell. I frowned. Who is this? 3 dots appeared for a moment. Someone who once thought they were special to him. My stomach dropped. The next message came almost immediately. Maxwell has a way of making people feel like he means it. Until he gets bored. I stared at the screen. A cold feeling crept down my spine. Right then the studio door swung open. Maxwell walked in carrying a paper bag, his hair damp from the rain. Guess who nearly got hit by a car buying you French fries? I quickly locked my phone screen. Maxwell stopped. What's wrong? Nothing. He looked at me for a moment. Vincent. I said nothing. Maxwell set the food bag down on the table. The smile faded from his lips. Is someone bothering you? I stayed quiet. And damn it all, I didn't know why I wanted to believe Maxwell actually cared. It was just a stupid message. Show me. You don't need to. Vincent. He stepped closer. Close enough that I could see individual drops of rain still clinging to his neck. I don't like that look on your face. My heart lurched. I don't have any look. You do. Maxwell said quietly. You're sad. Somehow those words made my throat tighten. He shouldn't be looking at me like that. Shouldn't be this gentle. It made me forget to keep my distance. I forced a small smile. I don't want to become the next campus joke. That's all. Maxwell frowned. What do you mean? I'm not stupid. I looked away. Everyone knows you flirt a lot. The air was quiet for a moment. Then Maxwell let out a slow breath. So you think I'm messing around with you? I don't know. He looked at me for a long time. So long the room seemed to stop moving. The rain outside the glass grew louder. Then Maxwell took one more step forward. The thing is, his voice dropped low. I've never acted like this with anyone. I snapped my head up. Maxwell, you think I like touching people? My heart was about to explode. You're scaring me. Good. Good? Maxwell smiled softly, but this time his eyes held no teasing. Only something warm enough to be frightening. I've been trying to slow down, he said quietly. But you are genuinely very hard not to like. I stood completely still. My brain stopped functioning entirely. What had Maxwell just said? I blinked rapidly. I must have heard that wrong. You didn't. No, I definitely did. I pointed at myself. You're talking about me? Maxwell let out a quiet laugh. Is there anyone else in this room? Maybe a ghost. I'd be pretty disappointed if you chose to believe a ghost over me. I opened my mouth, then closed it again, like a fish gasping for air. Damn it. Nobody warned me that the most famous attractive guy on campus could short-circuit a person's entire nervous system with just a few sentences. Maxwell leaned his hip against the editing desk. How much longer are you going to stare at me? I'm processing the situation. What situation? You just crashed my brain's operating system. This time Maxwell really laughed. That low, warm sound made my chest burn in a deeply dangerous way. I didn't mean to. I think you've been doing it on purpose since we first met. You mean when you were wearing pizza boxers? Please stop bringing that up.
No.
Maxwell shook his head. That was destiny. Covered my face. I hate my life. Funny. He watched me carefully. I've actually been quite fond of mine lately. My heart went haywire again. Not good. Not good at all. After that evening, everything between Maxwell and me shifted. Not clearly, not officially, but differently, like an invisible thread had suddenly appeared between us. A glance that lingered a beat too long. An accidental brush of hands that neither of us pulled away from first. A sweet tension that was dangerously close to unbearable. And the worst part? Maxwell seemed to enjoy every second of it. 3 days later, we were sitting in the lecture hall waiting for the professor when Maxwell suddenly dragged his chair closer to me. Much too close. His thigh was nearly touching my leg. I think you're violating my personal space, I muttered. I think you like it. Bold of you. I observe well. I tried to focus on my laptop. Failed completely. Maxwell's cologne kept drifting past me, wrecking my concentration entirely. Are you free tonight? He asked. Depends. I have hockey tickets. I thought you played hockey.
Ido.
I turned to look at him. Wait. Maxwell's lips curved. Finally. Tonight is your game? Yeah. And you're telling me now? I wanted to see how long it'd take you to figure it out. I thought you were just a famous hot guy. That hurts. I'm serious. I laughed. I just transferred. I don't know everything yet. Maxwell propped his chin in his hand and looked at me for a moment. Well, now you know. Something about the way he said it made my throat go dry. Yeah, I said quietly. Now I know. That night was the first time I saw Maxwell on the ice. And God, I understood why the whole campus was wild for him. The arena was packed with students. Cheers rolling through the stands. Everyone screaming Maxwell's name every time he cut across the rink. Hayes, let's go Max. Marry me. I laughed when a girl behind me shouted that last one. But then Maxwell suddenly looked up toward the stands. Straight toward me. And he smiled. Just a slight curve of his mouth. But enough to make my stomach flip completely. Holy shit. The student next to me breathed. Who did Maxwell Hayes just smile at? I immediately looked away. My ears were inexplicably burning. Elridge won that night. And naturally the whole team went out to celebrate. Come on, Maxwell said as I tried to slip back to the apartment. Just for a bit. I'm not great with big crowds. Then stay close to me. My heart leapt at that like an idiot. Damn it. I needed him to stop casually saying things like that. The party was at a sports bar near campus. The moment Maxwell walked in, the whole place practically detonated. Whistles. Names being called out. Glasses clinking. Walking beside him felt like escorting a celebrity. Maxwell, a beautiful blonde girl, threw herself at him in a hug. I stopped instinctively. She kissed him on the cheek like it was nothing. You played so well tonight. Thanks, Chloe. Chloe glanced over at me. Oh, she smiled politely. Is this the new roommate? Vincent. Maxwell answered before I could. Goo. Chloe tilted her head. I see. I frowned. See what? But she just smiled knowingly and got pulled away by her friends. I stood there for a moment. A strange, uncomfortable feeling settled in my chest. Maxwell glanced at me. Jealous? Me? You were just looking at Chloe like you wanted to file a lawsuit against her. I made a face. I figured you two used to date. Yeah. My heart sank. Oh, right. Of course. Someone like Maxwell had obviously dated a lot of beautiful people. I didn't understand why that thought made my chest feel heavy. But it ended a long time ago, Maxwell added. I tried to keep my voice even. Is that so? Yeah. Cool. Maxwell watched me for a moment, then laughed softly. You really have no idea how easy you are to read, do you? I genuinely have no clue what you're talking about. Sure. Annoyingly handsome jerk. Around midnight, most of the crowd was well past tipsy. I sat in the corner of a sofa sipping Coke because I had an embarrassingly low tolerance. Maxwell was playing pool with his teammates not far away. I stared at him for way too long without meaning to. Then a voice came from beside me. Don't fall too hard for Maxwell. I turned. A dark-haired guy was leaning against the bar. He was looking at me with a strange, almost pitying expression. Sorry. I mean it. He took a sip of his beer. You remind me of myself last year. My stomach sank. I don't know what you mean. Maxwell's great. He smiled bitterly. Until he gets scared of something real. I stayed quiet. You dated Maxwell? Not exactly. The guy looked toward the pool table. We got pretty close. My chest tightened uncomfortably. Why are you telling me this? Because you look at him the way I used to. He exhaled. And I don't want to see someone else get hurt. I hadn't even had a chance to respond before the bar erupted. Ooh, I looked over. Maxwell had just sunk the final shot. He was grinning as his teammates roared around him. Then, as if he sensed my eyes on him, Maxwell looked straight over. The smile on his face slowly disappeared as he saw me standing next to the dark-haired guy. His expression went cold immediately. The air shifted in an instant. I should go. The dark-haired guy stepped back. Good luck, Vincent. Wait. But he was already gone. And Maxwell was already walking toward me. What did Ethan say to you? His voice was lower than usual. Cooler. Nothing. Vincent. I'm serious. Maxwell stared at me for a few seconds. Then he took hold of my wrist. Come with me. Maxwell. Please. Just one word. But enough to make me follow him outside without being able to resist. The night wind was bitterly cold, cutting across the street. The music from the bar was now just a faint pulse behind us. Maxwell let go of my wrist and exhaled sharply. I hate that Ethan was talking to you. Why? He was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed softly, humorlessly. Because you're starting to matter to me more than I expected. My heart nearly stopped. The night wind tossed Maxwell's brown hair. He stood in front of me under the pale yellow light outside the bar. Tall, unreasonably handsome. And he had just said the sentence that sent my head into complete chaos. You're starting to matter to me more than I expected. I swallowed hard. You can't just casually say things like that. Why not? Because I'm a human being. Pointed at my chest. My heart is fragile. Maxwell gave a small laugh. But his eyes didn't leave me. I mean it. Those words made the air between us suddenly dangerous. I hated that I understood exactly what that meant. I don't know how to react anymore, I admitted. You don't have to. You've turned my life into a complete mess. Vincent. Maxwell moved slightly closer. I'm just being honest. That's exactly the problem. If he were only flirting for fun, I could remind myself not to hope. But Maxwell didn't seem like he was playing anymore. And that was so much more frightening. The bar door burst open behind us. There you are. A group of half-drunk teammates tumbled out. The moment between me and Maxwell shattered instantly. Hayes, we've been looking everywhere for you. We going for tacos or what? Luke just threw up in a flower pot. Wonderful, Maxwell muttered. I laughed despite the tension that had been sitting in the air just seconds ago. Maxwell turned to look at me, and God, his expression softened the instant he saw me laugh. Like my happiness was simply enough. That made my heart go dangerously, helplessly soft. It was close to 1 in the morning by the time we got back to the apartment. I had just pushed my door open when I heard Maxwell behind me. Vincent. I turned. He stood in the dim hallway, one hand braced against the door frame, his hockey jersey collar loosened. Yeah. Maxwell looked at me for a moment. I'm not good at this. I think the entire campus would disagree. I'm serious. He gave a hollow smile. I've never liked someone in a way that made me have to think this much. My heart pounded so hard it actually ached. Maxwell, I know I have a reputation. He glanced at the floor briefly, then back at me. But I've never intentionally tried to hurt anyone. I thought of the strange message. Thought of Ethan. Of all the warnings. But then I looked at Maxwell standing right in front of me. Achingly sincere. And damn it all, I wanted to believe him. I don't know where this is going, I said quietly. Me neither. And you still want to try? Maxwell didn't answer right away. He stepped closer. Very close. Yeah, he said softly. Very much. The air went thick. I could hear my own heartbeat. Could feel how close Maxwell's breath was. His eyes dropped to my lips for one brief, fleeting second. I thought he was going to kiss me, and the embarrassing truth was, I wanted him to desperately, but then Maxwell's phone rang. We both startled like we'd been caught doing something wrong. Maxwell swore under his breath and pulled out his phone. I have to take this. I immediately stepped back. Yeah, of course. That moment dissolved faster than it had formed. Maxwell looked at me like he wanted to say something, but in the end he only exhaled. Good night, Vincent. Good night. I closed my bedroom door and pressed my back against it, then shoved my face into my pillow and screamed without making a sound. I was completely done for. The days that followed felt like psychological torture. Maxwell didn't kiss me, didn't confess anything, didn't put a name to whatever was between us. But he also didn't stop flirting. If anything, it was worse than before. He started making a habit of sitting pressed against me on the sofa, stealing my headphones to listen to music together, leaving sticky notes on the fridge that said things like, "Eat breakfast, pizza boy," or, "You talk in your sleep a lot." I spent 3 full minutes panicking over the second one. What did I say? Maxwell sat across the kitchen table, calmly eating toast. Nothing. Thank God. You just kept saying my name. I froze. Maxwell's shoulders were shaking with suppressed laughter. I hate you. I know. I'm moving out. You can't afford to. I hate that you're right. Maxwell laughed out loud. And damn it all, I loved making him laugh. A week later, Belridge held its autumn festival on campus. The kind of festival with warm golden lights, food trucks, acoustic music, and couples strolling hand in hand across the grounds. I should not have gone, because going with Maxwell in the middle of all that was practically emotional self-destruction. What do you want to eat? Maxwell asked as we walked along the food truck row. Everything. Very on-brand of you. I'm a simple person.
No.
Maxwell glanced at me. You're much more complicated than you think. My heart scrambled again. He needed to stop talking like the male lead of a romance film immediately. We bought hot dogs and wandered around campus. Every corner glowed with warm light. A student band was playing an old love song under a maple tree. The atmosphere was dangerously beautiful. Vincent. I turned. A girl from our communications class came running over. You actually came. She looked at Maxwell and grinned with obvious implication. Ah. Why does everyone react like that? I complained. Because you two look like you're on a date. I nearly choked on my hot dog. Maxwell was completely unfazed. Maybe we are. I whipped around to stare at him. The girl shrieked. I knew it. No. My face went red. He's joking. Maxwell raised an eyebrow. Pretending again? I wanted to actually punch him. Genuinely. The girl laughed like it was the greatest thing she'd ever witnessed and ran off to spread gossip. I turned to glare at Maxwell. You really enjoy giving me heart attacks, don't you? Very much. Psychopath. Only with you. I turned away immediately to hide the fact that I was blushing. Maxwell watched me for a moment and smiled quietly. And just then, someone appeared in front of us. Max. The smile dropped from Maxwell's face instantly. I looked at the newcomer. A tall guy with dark blonde hair, wearing a black leather jacket. Handsome in a sharp, cool way. And his eyes were fixed on Maxwell with an expression far too layered to read. "Daniel," Maxwell said slowly. My stomach sank immediately. Oh no. That was the tone that only existed between people who had a history. Daniel finally looked at me. "So this is Vincent." I blinked. "You know who I am?" Daniel gave a thin smile. "Hard not to." He looked back at Maxwell. "The whole campus is talking about you too." The air went taut. I looked at Maxwell. Maxwell looked at Daniel. An instinct told me I was not going to like what came next. The tension between Maxwell and Daniel was so sharp I had the feeling one wrong touch would set it off. The acoustic band in the distance kept playing some sweet love song. Completely wrong for the moment. Daniel slid his hands into his jacket pockets, eyes still on Maxwell. "It's been a while." "Yeah," Maxwell answered shortly. I glanced back and forth between them. Okay, this was clearly not a normal acquaintance situation. "Vincent, right?" Daniel turned to me and smiled pleasantly. "I'm Daniel. Maxwell's ex." Maxwell immediately cut in. "Daniel's doing his graduate degree here. And he slept with me," Daniel added perfectly casually. I inhaled a hot dog. Maxwell closed his eyes and swore. "Jesus Christ, Daniel." "What?" Daniel shrugged. "I'm just saving him the trouble of guessing." I stood completely still. Maxwell had slept with a man. That information should have made me happy. Instead, my chest tightened in a way that felt entirely wrong. Daniel looked at my reaction and let out a small laugh. "Relax. Ancient history."
I'm relaxed, he lied. Badly.
"Vincent," Maxwell said, a note of warning in his voice. Daniel held up both hands in surrender. Okay, I'll stop." He looked at Maxwell for a long moment, then spoke more slowly. "I'm glad for you." That made Maxwell pause. Before I could make sense of any of it, Daniel had already stepped back. "Enjoy your date. This isn't I started. "It is." Maxwell cut me off. I turned sharply to face him. Daniel let out a low whistle like he'd just watched something deeply entertaining. "Wow," he said. Someone finally got Maxwell Hayes to be serious. Then he was gone, leaving me standing there, frozen in the middle of the festival. I turned to Maxwell slowly. "Date?" Maxwell calmly took the last bite of his hot dog. "Yeah." "What do you mean, yeah?" "I mean I'm taking you on a date." "You never said it was a date." "If I had, you would have said no." "True." "See." I buried my face in my hands and groaned. "You are a manipulative psychopath. But you're still walking beside me." This insufferably handsome idiot genuinely had a way of leaving people speechless. After running into Daniel, I started thinking more than was healthy. Okay, actually I was overthinking to the point of near insanity. Because suddenly everything felt more real. Maxwell wasn't just flirting for fun. He publicly called this a date. In front of someone he used to sleep with. And the most terrifying thing was, I liked that very much. "I can hear your brain from here," Maxwell said as we sat down on the library steps. "I'm thinking. Dangerous. I'm considering whether I can block you in real life." Maxwell laughed and handed me a cup of hot chocolate he'd just bought. Our fingers touched during the exchange. My heart jumped like an absolute fool. "You and Daniel." I hesitated. "Was it ever serious?" Maxwell was quiet for a moment.
No.
But he wanted it to be." Maxwell looked down at his coffee. "And I didn't. Not then." I didn't know why that answer made my chest feel heavy. Maybe because Ethan had said, "Maxwell gets scared of anything real." Maxwell tilted his head and looked at me. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking I should run." "Too late." "That's not very reassuring." "I'm not trying to reassure you." "Why not?" Maxwell looked straight into my eyes. "Because I want you to like me." My heart slammed so hard it hurt. "You can't keep saying things like that and then act completely normal." But your reactions are so worth it. I will throw you into that pond. You're not strong enough. I hate you. Maxwell smiled quietly. No, you don't. And damn it all. He was right. Around 9 o'clock, the temperature dropped sharply. I shivered as a cold wind cut across campus. Maxwell looked at me, frowning. You didn't bring a heavier jacket? I thought it wouldn't get this cold. Boston spoiled you. Chicago is a wind hellscape. Maxwell shook his head. Then without a word pulled off his outermost hoodie and held it out to me. I blinked. What about you? I'm fine. You're wearing a t-shirt. I play hockey. Wow. Deadpan. Basically superhuman. Exactly. But I put the hoodie on anyway, which was a mistake, because it was saturated with Maxwell's scent. Sandalwood.
Mint.
A trace of clean laundry. I felt like I was losing my mind. Maxwell watched me pull the sleeves down over my hands and laughed. Goo. I'm suing you. For what? For making me nervous constantly. Maxwell started to say something, but his phone suddenly buzzed. He looked at the screen and frowned. It's my mom. Take it. Maxwell hesitated, then answered. I politely turned away, eyes drifting to the warm lights reflected across the campus pond, until I heard Maxwell's voice change. What? I turned back. The expression on his face was completely different. Tight, strained. Why tonight? My stomach dropped instinctively. Maxwell took a few steps away, turning his back to me. No, I understand. He dragged a hand roughly through his hair. I had never seen Maxwell like this before. No easy confidence. No teasing warmth in his eyes. Just tension and helplessness. The call ended after about a minute. Maxwell stood still. I stepped closer. What happened? He said nothing, then exhaled very slowly. My dad's been hospitalized. Every scattered thought in my head went quiet. Oh shit. Mild heart attack. Maxwell looked at the ground. My mom wants me to come home right away. Where do you live? Detroit. I watched Maxwell's hand tighten around his phone. For the first time since I'd met him, I saw Maxwell genuinely afraid. Not the campus star. Not the hockey captain. Just a 22-year-old boy scared for his father. And somehow, that made something in my chest ache sharply. Hey! I touched his arm gently. He's going to be okay. Maxwell looked up at me. That look hit me somewhere deep, because for the first time, he let me see him fragile. Vincent.